Thank you, Gabby. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for sharing your story. I'm completely humbled and I'm grateful to be here. So my name's Graham Correa. I'm a grateful recovering drug addict. I am super nervous right now. Usually I'm not, but I think that's probably a good thing. So I grew up in Rochester, Massachusetts on a beautiful 13-acre horse farm, great family, great friends, community around me. And I remember 12 years old, about 12 and a half, my parents left me alone in the house, and I got an eye on a big jug of wine, Portuguese jug of wine. And I remember thinking, everybody seems to have a really good time when they're drinking that. So no one was home, and I grabbed one of those little plastic cups. Just a little pink wine in a plastic cup, and I had one, I drank another one. And then I had a third one, and I was running around the house with a little basketball, dunking it on the hoop that's on the doors inside the house. Seemed like everything that I had problems with, that thing inside that made me uncomfortable, went away completely in those 2 to 3 hours, followed by a headache and throwing up. But it didn't matter because I had found what I thought was a solution to my problems. I'm not going to go into between 12 and 42. It was a mess, I promise. But I will fast forward to 42 November 4th of 2021, walking out of a crack house with no shirt on, ripped jeans, walking down the streets of Fall River, and thankfully there was a man taking out his trash. And he said, "Sit down on the wall, you're not doing well." So I got an ambulance, had my parents come to the hospital and pick their son up. The day before, I got a phone call from my, at the time, wife, a phone call that I am super grateful for at this point, saying that our marriage was over. And she had spent a long time sticking around, watching me alienate her and everyone else in my family and lying to everyone. So I tried to end my life that night. And my plan was to smoke as much crack as I could to give myself a heart attack. So I spent about $1,000 that night. I lost my job, 6-figure salary, lost my family, and lost a lot of my friends that weren't talking to me anymore. So I finally had to make a decision to do this. And I had tried to do this before, and I say tried, but I really wasn't in it. I went to treatment, saw therapy, took medication, 12 steps, sponsor. And this time I knew that because I didn't have anything left, it was just me. So I woke up the next morning after my dad sat next to me and held my hand all night because he was afraid I was going to call my dealer and have him pick me up. I called a friend who lived in Maine, and he was an old personal trainer. And he asked me one question. He said, "Why aren't you running?" So I used to be an ultra-marathon runner, so I'd run 50-mile races, 100-mile races. And I said, "Well, I can't. I lost my soul. I lost that drive." And he said, "I think you need to run, but I think you really need to run like you used to run." So I took it into consideration. I called my best friend from childhood in Colorado. He lived on the edge of the Rockies in Colorado Springs. And I said, his name is Keeler. I asked him, "Is there any way that I could come stay with you? Because I need to leave this area, people, places, and things." He said, "I kind of live like a hermit on the edge of the Rockies, but you're welcome to my awful green couch." So I said, okay. So about 4 months before that, I had planned a vacation that I couldn't make because I was too screwed up and hungover to actually go to Mexico. Wouldn't have been a good idea anyway. But I had a JetBlue credit from that. The JetBlue credit was for $350. The flight from Boston to Denver that day was $346. So that was my first sign that this is something that I need to do, and I need to trust God, that is my higher power, in the direction that He's going to take me. So 7 hours later, I was on a plane. Weirdly enough, on the plane there was about 16 passengers. And I had the whole back to myself, and I had my head against the window looking outside, going over Detroit and Chicago, and in tears, knowing that I had pretty much lost everything that I had. I got to Colorado with a duffel bag and $40. Keeler picked me up at the airport, brought me to his house. I slept on the green couch. I got a job at a deli. I am an electrician. I had a job working in Boston, making $180,000 a year. None of that mattered because I had nothing left. I wanted to humble myself, so I got a job at a deli, started going to meetings out there, and started to run 15 to 20 miles a day in the Rockies. After about 3 weeks of doing that, I was sitting on the edge of the Rockies. I was actually meditating, and I was looking out at the plains where it's all flat. And for the first time in my life, I heard a voice, very small whisper, just say, "Run home." So I got there on November 4th, 2021. January 1st, 2022, I had a backpack on, got dropped off at Union Station in Denver, and I ran 40 miles a day through the winter back to Massachusetts for 72 days. And the reason that I did that was to get that part of myself I lost a long time ago back. It was the hardest thing I ever done. I had articles written about me, calling me a crackhead, child abandoned father, and that was all meant for me to see and hear because those things were true. I had lied to everybody. I had ruined my family. I had told stories about my family that weren't true about wonderful people, and I needed to hear that for moving forward. But during that run, a lot of things happened. A lot of blisters, a lot of painful moments, but I got a relationship with God. You can't really not get one when you're trusting that you can't get up in the morning to walk, but you have to run another 40 miles to get to the next hotel, because I didn't have a crew. It was just me and God. But this amazing thing happened with the community back home. People knew I had no money to do this. So I would get a message on Facebook saying, "Listen, I booked you a hotel in this town if you can make it there." I never had to pay for a hotel or food the entire time. And the community that came together during that, I could have never imagined. I ran for the Heron Project to raise money and awareness for this disease. And while I was running, I found purpose. And that's really why I want to talk tonight, is purpose. In all the treatment centers and all the programs I went in, I had such an incredible amount of tools that I learned during that. Meditation, prayer, yoga, writing my 4th step, speaking my 5th step, amends process, therapy, medication at the time. And there were a lot of wonderful tools, and I still have those wonderful tools. But I realized as I was running out there that you can have a large toolbox, but you need to know what you're building. And my biggest question that I didn't get asked at any of these places was, what's your purpose? What is your purpose? Because without that, I was always just kind of going through the motions. And I would stay sober for a long time, but I would also stay very miserable for a long time. And so when I started getting purpose, it was sometime in Virginia. I hadn't spoken to my daughter. She hadn't spoken to me, rightfully so. She needed time away from me because of the havoc that I had caused. And I didn't know if this run was going to do anything for me. I didn't know what people were thinking that were in my family. I spoke with my parents, but that was about it. And I was on mile 26 on a very cold day running through West Virginia. And my plan was to run 35 miles that day. And I got a message from my daughter, a picture of her and her best friend touring my old college to see where she wanted to go to school. And I called her and I spoke with her. That was the first time I had heard from her since, I think, November, when all of this stuff came out and she had to move on and do her own thing. that gave me my first glimmer of my purpose. One of my purposeful things is my kids, and my daughter is sitting over there today with me here today. And I am so incredibly grateful of that, because 2 years ago, I was almost dead. And she was moving on from me because she didn't want to be a part of a father that was gonna die. So I got home, and it was difficult for me, as you can imagine. I was running 40 miles a day, and then I had to stop because my body was so damaged. But I had a spiritual connection that I'd never had before. But I still had to learn how to do this after I did that. And that's where the difficulty came in. I had my moments. I had difficult times that I had to work through, and that's where community came in, and the phone calls were made to my sponsor, going to meetings, calling people that I knew were there for me during the run, and they said they'd always be there. I do run again now, and I'm back on my feet doing that, but I needed a lot of time to work through things, and purpose helped me. Being with my children helped me. Knowing that I want to help kids in high school and help get this message out there, that is my purpose at this point. And that allows me to use the tools and know what I'm building. So today I'm humbled to be here. I'm incredibly grateful to be here. And I know that going forward, it's going to be very hard. I lost a lot of friends to this. And I know that there's a lot of you out here who have lost a son or a daughter, brother, sister, friend. I promise that they love you, and they loved you so much. I promise that they had thoughts and visions of a different life going forward. They are sitting right next to you. I know what I thought when I was using, not being able to pull myself out of it. It wasn't lack of love. I loved my parents so much, and they loved you so much. And they are right here today. And they are smiling, I promise. So thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate this, and again, I am so incredibly humbled to be here. Thank you so much.